Welcome to Beyond Narratives, and welcome to our first episode. I've got my co-host here, the ever-vigilant Chris Nonis from Down Under, and I'm Al, straight out of NYC, the ever-hardcore leftist. Combined, we are Beyond Narratives, the podcast that combats the CIA MI6 propaganda matrix and gives you a viewpoint you will not hear anywhere else. We'll also tackle stories that emanate from the nexus of the culture wars, finance, tech, and of course, politics. So, let's get started. Hey Chris, what's on your mind this week?
It's obviously very hard to step over this one. The biggest story of the week is bombing Syria. So, let's take this away.
Go for it, man. This guy's out of control.
Okay. So, it didn't take how long did it take?
37 days.
37 days.
He actually he bombed Syria on my birthday. What a freaking prick.
That's the perfect birthday gift. I mean,
inside the gift that keeps giving.
Yeah, I know. The Biden is the gift that keeps on giving. So this time, he went and flattened a bunch of facilities in the corner of Syria and Iran, and I'm assuming this is okay. So there's a number of things that come to my mind here. Okay, the first one is a week before this bombing happened, we were hearing in the news that Iran is somewhat reluctant to come to the table with the United States for the Iran nuclear deal, which is, it's all noble and shit. That's how Democrats are selling it to the rest of the world. So now if you have to step beyond the narrative, we have to just talk about this being a strategy to force Iran to come back to the nuclear deal. So they're bombing the shit out of a country to get them into some sort of a, highly orchestrated peace deal to make themselves look good.
But how are they gonna orchestrate a peace deal if they're bombing the same people?
That's the thing. So this bombing shit, it's all done as a strong arm tactic to get a certain country to submit into a certain type of a peace deal. So, I'm assuming that this is one of the reasons that they're bombing. This has something to do with the fallout from the peace deal. They want Iran to be back on the peace deal, so they're they are saying that this is a retaliation myth. But do you know what they're retaliating about?
They said that
about some rockets?
Insurgents were but there's no proof of anything. And on top of that, it's funny how they Trump still looms in the background, because they hate Trump so much. Why are they trying to derail the peace deal? It was their peace deal. It was a Democrats' peace deal. Now they're trying to pull some Republican peace deal, which means that I think it's more like Biden trying not to be Obama. Because that guy, what's our favorite fascist in the Middle East, Netanyahu? He said that he's really happy with the bombing. And he goes, okay, Biden's not Obama. I love it.
So it's my understanding that Netanyahu and the company, they are a lot of things, but what they are not is stupid. So they really do want to go ahead with this peace deal, because they really want to go ahead with this nuclear deal, because they want to open Iran to their whole... they're starting to realize that Iran is kind of a loose cannon, but also there's a lot of money to be made in Iran. A lot of gender hormones to be sold. Yeah,
are you sure about that though? Because I always thought that Netanyahu was incensed by Iran, and then they'll never they're looking for a fight.
So they've been passive aggressive in the past about this, but I think they are a very calculated group of people in Israel, and they are starting to realize that this nuclear deal, you can. Go a bit back and forth, but at the end of the day, they do want to make sure that Iran is not in a situation where they can fire a nuke at Israel. And I think what I get is of course, they are divided in the fractions in the United States and the Zionist fractions in the United States and Israel. But I think at the end of the day, they want to go through with it. I'm quite sure that they have want some sort of a deal to happen. So they do want it, but they so let's talk about the original nuclear deal for a little. So why did this fall out? Of course, Trump had a big major reason to. Trump was a major player, but there were also some legitimate concerns about the original nuclear deal, in the sense there weren't some very important clauses not included in the original nuclear deal, right? For example, there was no ICBM, or certain types of ballistic delivery methods were not included in the original nuclear deal, and they want to have those in it. So
It's funny how they want to rewrite terms of deals they've made.
yeah, that's true. So yeah, so those were the reasons why, those were at least the official reasons that were given for pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal. So I'm not too sure what type of a nuclear deal Biden is going after now. That's the premise of, I think, why the attacks were done, to get Iran on the table for a nuclear deal, based on some attacks that the Iran militia has. So I don't know, Iran-backed Syrian militia that has carried out in the U.S. But were these attacks carried out during the Biden administration, or were they?
If you think about this, right, no matter when it's being carried out, first of all, it's Iranian militias welcomed by Syria, right? So Syria says, come out of our country. We are in that country illegally, right? And we're being pissed that people are bombing us in a country that we're occupying completely illegally. This is not even like Iraq. This is like, they've just been there for like 7 years or whatever, right? And they gave Russia 4 minutes notice that we're going to bomb, right? And even the Russian foreign minister Lavrov said, he was like, well, you may as well have not told us. The thing is, like, these guys, I mean, like, we thought Trump was like gonna, he wasn't the Russian stooge. In fact, he actually went more. He scrapped all those. He allowed all those treaties to lapse. Remember the START treaties or the nuclear treaties and stuff like that, with all those, missile reduction treaties. And the thing is, now he made things like much more provocative with Russia. And if these guys were to just, I think there was a thing a few years ago where they bombed like some place and had some Russians killed. I don't know if you remember that. I think it happened, right? I'm fuzzy on the details, but if something like that, what if they were like to just drop the bomb in the wrong place and like kill a whole platoon of Russians? I mean, what's gonna happen then? It's like.
So I did see some shit libs arguing on Facebook about this, and this is something we need to bring up, because I think we need to discuss about how people should respond when they see this type of arguments in social media.
Right.
And the question he posed was, what would your proposed method of retaliation be if U.S. personnel were targeted by rockets? So this thread went on for a while now, and I think it's worth addressing this, because of course there are numerous things you can say. How about get the fuck out of that country or whatever?
Yeah, why are you there?
That's not pragmatic in terms of where we stand right now, right? So let's talk about it. What would your proposed method of retaliation be if your facilities were attacked by an Iranian-backed militia?
Well, I mean, the thing is, again, I think that's still a canard, though, honestly, because the premise is false, right? We're there illegally, so anything that happens to you is not based in any kind of like logic. You're in someone else's country, and there's a third country attacking you because they've been invited in by the country you're in, right? It's like Iraq. Like when we went in there was all these, what was like a year and a half of like just suicide bombings, or 2 or 3 years of it. Remember? We had almost 4,500 people die. And the only retaliation to that was to drop more bombs. And then the cycle of violence continues. Simple as that. So I'm not for one, like, you know what? Get the hell out of there. That's the solution. Of course, I'm like a peacenik, so I'll say that.
Okay, so someone says no country was bombed. So what would you say to that?
No country was bombed.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So they didn't go and bomb a country. They bombed a bunch of facilities at the border.
Well, they're bombing in Syria.
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot bomb a country. Any place you drop a bomb, there will be a country there, unless you're bombing like the middle of the ocean or something.
And what if someone says, okay, here you go. So I'm reading the thread. And Syria clearly has something to do with Iran militias. So how would you retaliate under those circumstances, he says?
Well, it's okay if Syria did, because Syria and Iran are allies. It's like saying like if America and UK are allies, and like if they're bombing, I mean, like they're bombing a bunch of people in Iraq. I mean, it's the same logic. I mean, they're combined against you. You should get out of there. It's simple as that. There's only one answer: get out, get out. There's no reason they're there. In fact, now they said that they bombed like these Iranian-backed militias who are the enemy of ISIS. And they're literally now talking about Biden going to be funding ISIS again, just like Obama did.
So,
And Al Qaeda.
Okay, so getting out of Iraq, why aren't they doing it yet? Like,
They've been do you remember last year they said they wanted them out, and they said they're going to give them a deadline. I think it's this year sometime, the deadline to get out, and they're not doing it. They're not getting out.
How many are there right now? There's
I think a few thousand.
People.
Yeah,
it's just a couple of thousand, right?
Yeah.
So they spent like $500 million on an embassy or something like that, right?
No, I think not $500 million. They spent billions, I think.
Billions.
Yeah, it's the size of the Vatican, the embassy.
Shit.
You can see it from space, apparently. But yeah, it's one of the most expensive. They made a movie about it. Remember Green Zone? With Matt Damon or something?
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm just wondering. So they're only there because I'm assuming they're only there because of Iran, right? They're only there because of Iran.
No, they're there for the oil.
Right
the MNCs are in there. Remember, the job was to get the oil companies in. That they did that job.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what they fear the most right now is that Iraq is in very good talking terms with China and
Iran, because it's the leadership is aligned with Iran. Remember?
Yeah.
When Saddam was around, it was the other way around.
So there's going to be sort of massive projects, the Belt and Road Initiative.
Of course, you can't have that.
Yeah.
Listen, at the end of the day, gotta have an enemy, man. Life's not complete without one. America equals we must have an enemy every 3 years.
Yeah. So I was wondering, just yesterday there was an argument that was going on between two people about. I'm assuming that when you look at the other peace deals that happen in this region, sort of like the Qatar, Saudi Arabia one. So just to go have a little bit of history on this, I know that Saudi Arabia at some stage tried to invade Qatar, and but Qatar got assistance from places like Turkey.
Sorry,
and
can you loop back? Yeah. Can you loop back? I lost you for a minute. Sorry, but I pressed the wrong button. Start with the Saudi Arabia peace deal.
So we hear a lot of Trump tards touting about this peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and I think we can have a little bit of understanding of U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East, looking at this particular conflict as well. So I'm assuming that another reason why the United States loves being in places like Iraq is they get a lot of control on the airspace and also the land space and probably the sea space as well. That keeps certain countries from developing trade routes across in this region. So a classic example is so this U.S. peace deal between Qatar and Saudi Arabia. So just to have a little bit of history on this one, I know that Saudi Arabia tried to invade Qatar, and Qatar, I think, got the help from Turkey. And since then, these two nations haven't been in good terms. But what Saudi Arabia did was they cut off the airspace for Qatar. So I think planes can't fly over Saudi Arabian airspace. This has
and I think and also UAE as well.
Yeah, so this has actually hurt Qatar like crazy. I mean, yeah, they are rich, but the fact that they can't use that airspace is actually tremendously disadvantageous to them, because that is a vital key area. So what the Trumps did was they brokered this deal, but you can see that at the same time, the reason why it happened was because Qatar approached the Kushners, and the Kushners were in a lot of debt, real estate debts. I think the
Right.
666 Park Avenue or something like that. They were on the they had a lot of real estate debts, and Qatar. You can see that they bailed out a lot of these Kushner debts in turn for this. In turn for Qatar saying, "Look, can you lift the blockade on this airspace?" And this is what they are boasting as a peace deal, some sort of a meaningless conflict being resolved at massive bribes and corruption. So I think also when you look at Trump's refusal to launch a bipartisan investigation into Khashoggi's death. I mean, there was a guy who came on Joe Rogan who spoke extensively about how Khashoggi was murdered, and how he was cooked and everything, and how he was taken out of bed. And there's a massive bipartisan call for an investigation, but Trump has actually personally, he's responsible for keeping going. Carrying out this investigation, and Saudi Arabia completely relied on Trump for this.
Didn't that report come out yesterday about that?
Oh, I'm not too sure. I gotta look at that.
The Khashoggi report is like it's a CIA report, but they're saying that it was ordered by MBS, and I guess now I guess now that Trump is not in charge, these guys. But here's the reason. The reason they're so into this Khashoggi stuff, you know why? Because he's one of the elites. He's one of those DC insider elite journalists who hang out at the country club, like Blasey Ford, like he raped me, that kind of shit. So if it happened to like any kind of like Tara Reid, like go to hell. But if it happened to like say if Max Blumenthal got like freaking chopped up in an embassy somewhere, they wouldn't give a shit. But because it's Khashoggi and he's like this insider, like DC insider who's like frequenting with the jet set, that's why. Because the thing is, it affects them. They like, oh, I could be next. This guy could murder me. That's all it is. It's like the Capitol riot. It happened so close to home that's why it's such a big deal. You think the average person cares about Khashoggi?
Yeah, no. Yeah. But of course, that's all probably true. But what I was going back to what I was saying was that I think you will see if everything falls apart for Trump, at some place that and he needs some protection. You will see him living somewhere in the UAE or Saudi Arabia, because these are the type of this is it's kind of very easy to connect the dots about Trump's Middle Eastern policy based on how he has personally enriched himself, him and his family, and the favors he's done, and back and forth. This was one of those occasions where it was very transparent. The Khashoggi murders. I mean, it's a shit straight out of a movie. You know what I mean?
Also, Trump never hit it, right? Like these guys, like Biden and stuff, they do the same thing, but they're more slick at. Well, they're not slick. They do the standard old politics. Like they know how to sort of cover it up in a way where everyone knows it's being covered up, but it's not as obvious as Trump did it, right?
So I think that's what. So tying it back to what I'm original. I think I know I went off on a tangent here. But tying it back to the original, so that's probably how I view Trump's Middle Eastern policy based on what I saw with the peace deal, plus what I saw with what he wanted in Iraq and everything else. It was a very personalized thing for him.
So when Trump did all of this stuff, like there's a tweet from Jen Psaki, right, from 2017, where she goes, Syria is a sovereign country. You can't just bomb it, right? And now, of course, they're bombing it, right? And the squad is completely cocked and quiet. Ilhan Omar replied to that tweet by saying, good question. But, like, what do you mean good question? You're in charge. You need to be answering these questions. What are you asking us for? So the squad, and Bernie is like, in Cloud 9. You can't find him anywhere. I think he's in the basement tied to a chair.
But Bernie released a statement yesterday. It was about how he's concerned about this and that, and about the bombing without the congressional approval, blah blah blah. So he was going on forever. No, it's just a letter, right? Senator Bernie Sanders, United States, he has issued a statement. But I wanted to say that he's okay. So he's expressed his concern about it. But this is the thing, though. Even the squad and everyone else, these people are so just the talk is cheap. So they'll put it out there just for the record. You know what? I did release a statement. I did say this. I did say that. I did like someone's tweet opposing it. Now that counts as well. You know that's a voting record now apparently. So yes.
Yep.
So
that's all you need.
yeah, so, yes,
it's easier because when you're looking at that, it's you won't get disturbed from brunch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, the talk is cheap because when you look at Bernie Sanders, I know we think Bernie Sanders is some sort of an anti-war candidate because he milks this one-hit wonder to death about how he didn't vote for the 2003 Iraq invasion. But that is just one special occasion. But if you want to see. Like he has voted for countless NDA.
Didn't he vote for Libya as well?
Yeah, he voted for Libya. Actually, this is something I picked up from Hillary Clinton.
Oh, wow.
I can't stand this bitch, but I think I do owe her a debt of gratitude because, she did come out and say, with all due respect, Senator, you voted for that war that, that caused the regime change in that country because they were having this debate and he tried to, this was a pot calling the kettle black kind of a moment where he, he tried to have a go at her. And this was a slightly different Hillary Clinton from the Hillary Clinton we know now. She was more of a, she would not say anything and she'd sort of say it back if you kind of corner her to a wall, kind of Hillary Clinton. She was like that for a very long time. I'm not going to lie. It's only like in the recently that she's become batshit crazy, Yeah, because she was more of a, I'd only attack you if you attack me type of a candidate.
Well, what would you do if your monster that you created, Trump, turned on you?
Exactly. So, anyway, she was getting attacked by him at this debate, and she said, I'll tell you exactly what she said. So I said, with all due respect, Senator, you voted for the regime change with respect to Libya. You joined the Senate in voting to get rid of Gaddafi, and you asked that there be a Security Council validation of that with a resolution. So there you go. She kind of told him that during the debate, and he didn't have a comeback. It was a
he's controlled opposition. He was there as just like to give you an impression that there's some kind of resistance. There is none. Where is he now? He's nowhere to be found. This is not even a real war. This is like complete illegal action, no permission. That was at least a NATO war. This is like we'll just bomb you. We don't care about anybody. Who's going to stop us?
And there was someone else that pointed out to me that there was a roll call for the not only did Bernie vote to confirm the torture apologist and drone warrior Avril Haines as the Intel director, but he also voted in favor of paving the way for Raytheon board of director Lloyd Austin to become the defense secretary. Yeah, so
you know what? When Trump did that, they nailed him to the cross because Trump did the same waiver where one of his guys, I think Mad Dog, was also a freaking lobbyist or whatever, and he was also like coming straight off like. But the thing is like. Bernie just like if he's going to vote for Avril Haines, who was the person who actually oversaw the crime of the Senate computers being hacked by the NSA, remember? Right? The CIA actually hacked these Senate computers that were investigating them, right? Especially it's in that movie, The Report with Adam Driver. But she was the one who like allowed it to go unpunished, right? What makes you think he won't vote for Neera Tanden? She's she's nothing compared to this Avril Haines. Avril Haines is like a criminal.
And we also actually, while we are on this topic, we can actually dive a bit more deeper. His state of Vermont, when you look at it, it's one of the biggest benefactors of the military-industrial complex. I mean, we can talk about the F-35, but we can sort of, we can leave that a little bit. We can save that for the last. I mean, look at the other stuff. Like if you go all the way back to the 90s, he had sweetheart deals with companies like General Electric. I remember So there was a report that Mayor Sanders, when he was the mayor of
Burlington.
Burlington,
Yeah.
so he sent cops to arrest people protesting the General Electric plant in Burlington.
Oh, that's so socialist of him.
Yeah, that was making Gatling guns being used by death squads in Latin America. So there was this one reporter who was there at the time. He says that it is hard to think of another politician who would be willing to anger General Electric while running for president. But Sanders wasn't willing to anger GE while he was the mayor, preferring instead to accuse peace protesters of being anti-worker. Then in 1999, Sanders had peace activists protesting in support of NATO, protesting his support of NATO bombing.
Yeah, he did
in
that.
Kosovo, arrested for trespassing at his Burlington office. And we can talk about the F-35 itself. I mean, this guy has consistently supported the F-35 even in the face of massive grassroots opposition from the working class
Well,
Vermont.
forget that. The U.S. Army or Air Force or whatever came out with a report last week. They actually said the F-35 was a complete waste of money.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, and this guy always talks about the bloated defense budget. And what about the F-35, Perny, huh? Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that he actually supported a company making Gatling guns that was used by South American death squads, because wasn't he on the side of Sandinistas, right? So he's on the side of the Sandinistas, but his own guns are shooting them with the death squads after the Sandinistas.
And also, this guy likes to talk about workers' rights, straight out of fucking Marxist books. So let's talk about the workers' rights that, the biggest violation of workers' rights right now we can see visible in America, the cancel culture, which is pretty much, cancel culture is a violation of workers' rights, because when your boss can fire you for a belief because it can impact the stock market, where are the workers' rights in that? You know what I mean? I mean, how are you fighting for workers' rights, Bernie, you pipsqueak, when you have strategically kept quiet on the cancel culture out of fear of trespassing, your little pitchfork boys and girls on Twitter? So, I mean, workers' rights is one of the, and the unions and this and that, this is one of his biggest talking points, right? So, so at least back up what you're preaching by speaking against the biggest violation of workers' rights we currently see. At least, the most visible violation of workers' rights we see in the media right now is cancel culture.
Hey, did you think of your Khashoggi point again?
Oh, yeah, actually, Khashoggi point, yeah. I think we often hear about the Trump supporters touting about peace deals in the Middle East, and for the most part, they keep talking about the Qatar and Saudi Arabia peace deal, because for the most part, they don't understand the history of, what a meaningless little, corrupt little deal this is. That was, it's sort of like a problem created to enrich a certain group of people, and no one's really affected by this peace deal because neither countries are poor, and and this is a very much a manufactured conflict that had a very little basis of any kind of human rights violations. So this peace deal doesn't really benefit a lot of the poor, the helpless, or the needy, and there was no real war. This peace deal is very much something that is something that stopped the people in Qatar from getting richer. And that's all. So that's sort of the argument I was seeing from people on the right yesterday. Trump brokered this, Trump brokered that, and he was a good guy. He was a peaceful candidate. He didn't have wars, but we know this is all bullshit, because I saw I think a tweet from Abby Martin in reply to Donald Trump Jr. Your dad extended the drone bombings and every existing war by a massive percentage.
Oh, yeah.
In some cases 4 or 5 times. So there's really so the Biden is merely just carrying out the same shit that Trump was carrying out. So this is not actually exactly a victory for the Trump tards. I know they are all sort of coming out right now and pretending to be something they're not. I mean, they've all been supporting these wars right throughout, and some of them aren't, but they all have this notion that Biden's just starting something that, something that Biden's failing in some way that Trump's succeeding. But this is completely untrue. Biden's just carrying out.
Well, I
what
also saw that
Trump was carrying
Trump
out.
Jr.
Yeah.
was actually had the gall to say at the end, like when his dad finished his term and lost the election, he said, "Oh, my dad, he didn't start any new wars." It's funny to see a right winger say that, like this guy. They can't find anything good to say about Trump, so they're using our the left wing talking point about how Biden was better than, how Trump didn't start like 7 wars like Obama did, but that doesn't make Trump any better. He expanded every other war. He dropped that mother of all bombs in Afghanistan in months. Remember, 26,000-pound bomb. He dropped on a mountainside and eviscerated it.
Jesus. Oh Jesus, yeah. I was looking at it from a aerial point of view. That bomb, Jesus Christ, yeah.
It's almost
bomb.
like a nuke for the people on the ground.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be laughing, but it's just like he did it because
sends out
it's
vibrations. Yeah.
well because he was compensating for his own limp dick or whatever. But the thing is, you know what? That's the thing, right? This whole shitlib mob, they get triggered by that. How dare you use a bomb for your own ego? If we do it for corporations, it's all good. If you do it for funding ISIS, Al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, and do all this geopolitics shit, and when it looks very technocratic like Obama did it, it's he's super statesman. But if he did it for himself, bad person, bad orange man.
Yes, I heard that one of those bombs cost like $30 million or something like that.
That's
because
right.
They paid Raytheon $300 million or something for the 10 they have in the arsenal. So so this war with Syria is an ongoing thing. So it's not a new conflict, but it's definitely something that can.
Well, don't forget the real reason, right? I think we've forgotten the real reason. Do you remember the real reason? It was hugely promoted in 2016, but nobody remembers it now. It was all for a pipeline. Remember?
Yeah. It was all for the Keystone. Not Keystone. I'm talking about what's the other one? The Russian one.
Yeah, they were competing with the Russian one.
Yeah. So I can't remember the name. It starts with O, right?
I've forgotten, but I know it's for that's all it's for, because they need to they want to just bypass. Obviously pipelines are the cheapest way to get oil across to Europe. So
and seriously, it's what is Nord Stream. Nord Stream. So Nord Stream pipeline, Nord Stream 2. So Russia had to build Nord Stream 2 or something. Yeah, and this is really no one's business as well, because the Europeans, especially countries like Germany, they want the gas from Russia because it keeps them.
Russia is the biggest provider in Germany, I think, for natural gas and stuff.
It solves a huge problem for them, because there are a lot of old people who can't afford the current gas prices and all, and this is helping them. So these people are trying to stop it because they want to establish a monopoly, and they will do exactly the fucking thing they did in Texas once they do this. So they are going to start supplying the Europeans their shit, and their shit's not going to be delivered on time. And then what's going to happen is they're going to see all these old people who can't afford to keep their house warm. They're going to freeze themselves with hypothermia and all that
capitalism,
shit.
right? Come on.
Yeah. But unlike with Texas, I know everybody's you won't see AOC flying over with a with a fundraiser when Europeans start dying of cold. They'll be like, oh, you know what? That is happening, but that is the price you have to pay for climate change. And you will see Greta Thunberg coming out and talking about how great it is that people are freezing to death. Without the Russian gas. They will all spin it in that way. I mean, I know I'm kind of being somewhat sarcastic here, but a lot of the time when I am, those things turn out to be true, because we are living a parody right now.
We're also talking about the military-industrial complex. You'll never see Thunberg ever talk about how the 1,000 military bases around the planet are the number one cause of freaking climate change. Like all these bases and all these, the U.S. military-industrial complex basically is one of the leading causes. But I wanted to just circle back from this bombing, because he did two things. He did the bombing, right?
Yeah.
And he used the lamest limp dick excuse to not pass the $15 minimum wage. The parliamentarian says he can't do it. First of all, it's just an advisory recommendation. I mean, if the parliamentarian was so powerful, wouldn't he be the president? And the VP can immediately remove that comment and go like, we don't care. They have the numbers, right? It's because they don't want to do it. So this is like Trump. Trump would say, I'm not going to do it. And the shitlibs would be like, oh my God, he's so bad. But here, the parliamentarian said you can't do it. So Biden is powerless. He can't do anything. Typical Democratic staged spinelessness, which will of course make the shitlibs go, well, he tried. It's the Republicans. No, it's not the Republicans. They're in the minority. There's no way the Democrats cannot pass anything. They could like eliminate student debt. They could. I mean, he was asked in a town hall, hey, are you going to, we need at least $50,000 eliminated from student debt. Oh, I can't. I won't do that. I mean, the guy's a ghoul, man. Have you looked at? He even looks like one now. No one's seen him. He's come for like one staged operation photo op in the CNN town hall. But I saw a picture of him behind the desk. Oh my God, he's like a crypt keeper now. Trump looks like a super lively guy compared to this guy.
So it is all true, right? I mean, these people are not going to do any of this stuff because I know sometimes we get the feeling that they are going to do it based on some of their voting records in the past for roll calls and all. But you can see that this is also well orchestrated in a way that we believe that when it comes to push and shoves, Democrats will do it. But we know that these roll calls don't mean anything now because these things are all pre-planned. So, of course, they're going to vote that way when they know there's no consequences to doing it. Because what best way to convince people that, you're going to back whatever you say with action, than when you actually have a fake roll call. And when you do a vote, we see Bernie voting no for something. And I was like, okay, so this guy's good. He's going to do it. He's not full of shit. He backs it up. But what we don't realize is that he's voting no because he knows that he can do it and the outcome will not change. But you never see another roll call for that again.
When they had the numbers to completely defang Nancy Pelosi or forced to vote, they all crumbled, and she's hardly like a big thing in terms of the big things that we need to do, right? She's a step towards doing those big things. They couldn't even take that first step. And in fact, now someone said the same thing about this fight for 15. They go like, they're not going to do it for fight for 15 either. So they're just completely useless, all of them.
Yeah, so they won't do it. So you can expect the same thing for everything else that all the other sacred cows that certain Democrats tout, like Medicare for all or eliminating student debt or military-industrial complex, which I think is the biggest one. But
let me stop you right there. You just mentioned Medicare for all, right? You'll never guess what happened last week.
What happened?
When Biden declared, after like getting off his senile ass, the state of emergency for Texas.
Guess
what that included? Medicare for all for everybody. Yeah. It seemed to have been like gone under the radar. I'm like, if you can do it for one state, why can't you do it for all states?
I wonder though how long that Medicare for all is going to last. I think the Texans should take advantage of this and try and drag it out forever. Once you get it, you don't need to let it go, right?
Well, it's Texas. They're kind of stupid. I mean, that's why they're in the place they're in. Yeah. In fact, they're the only state in the country that has its own power grid, right? And only the counties that are in next to adjoining states, like on the border, they had power. Everything else went black.
Yeah. So it did look like it could have been something big, but I think the worst is over now, right? So
that's because the weather is shifting,
so the weather.
But I mean, it's funny seeing Texas like covered in snow.
Yeah. So this was a polar vortex of some sort, right? So I think I think you can learn from this and more, maybe there are some improvements you can do to their natural gas, but you get the feeling when you look back at it now, everyone tried to politicize this more than I find it so funny that not us, but I mean, I was very concerned for that girl who lives in Texas, so because she couldn't talk to me for a whole day, and she said she felt like she was going to die. So Yeah, because she was having hypothermia. So yeah,
Crazy.
so
And imagine like if like you said, like the German
yeah,
example, if you're like an old
yeah,
person living alone
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
there's no
yeah,
power and there's no water.
yeah.
They, in fact, some of them had to boil water, but with what? There's no heat, there's no freaking electricity, there's nothing to boil water with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, I'm very really because I know that Texas has a lot of animals as well. So
Well, apparently a lot of them suffered and died.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So they have a lot of exotic animals as well, right? Like tigers and all, monkeys and all
Wow.
that shit. So yeah, so yeah, I was very concerned, but I think the worst is over. Thank goodness. So, but there are things you can learn from this. One is of course how to get that gas out when it's frozen, when your pipes are frozen, like under those conditions, especially if these type of things are likely to return from because of the irregular weather patterns now we tend to see sometimes,
I don't get this.
Right,
What AOC was doing, she went and did this fundraiser, which no one is criticizing,
because
right?
she hates Ted Cruz, right? They have
No,
they
I
had
know,
this
but what you would think that when something like this happens, you as a lawmaker try to figure out how to create laws that can have a more of a direct impact on people than a $2 or $3 million fundraiser.
When something like this happens, you as a politician, your job is to express concern over around and have some empathy, not politicize it like the way these people like AOC did and doing all these massive media spectacles. I mean, you're supposed to represent the country and the people and work with everyone to form solutions, not point fingers.
She
and
said Ted Cruz
act
tried
like
to kill her.
children.
Remember?
Yeah, not point, not this is such childish behavior, especially and even the way the people reacted to it, like Jank Hugert going off at Joe Rogan. What the fuck was that about? You've been on his show, and I've seen occasions where people would come on Joe Rogan's show and pick on people like Jank Hugert and Joe Rogan will say, he's been on my show. He said, I think he means where, he's stuck up. Joe has many weaknesses, but he's always stuck up for people who has been on his show.
I think what's happening here, that whole Cenk Uygur, AOC, and all this, like this, like AOC had a chance to work with Ted Cruz on a lot. Yeah. So I think he wanted to work on that GameStop thing, right? And she was like, "You try to murder me, right?" And she completely took it into that direction. But I think what's happened, like you mentioned, cancel culture before, right? Now, as you know, House Democrats are trying to deplatform Fox News. So these guys have become the ultimate fascists, where they want to deplatform anyone they don't agree with. It's always the Republicans that are bad, first of all, right? Then it's going to be like, left of Republicans, and soon is, of course, going to go. It's already gone on to the left. Like so many, Patreon has deplatformed the Last American Vagabond, etc. Right? So this whole cancel culture thing is just like, and they're leading the charge for this. So these guys are worse than Trump. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they are worse. I mean, I think Trump's worst quality was that he was ineffective in controlling anyone.
Well, and then he helped push their narrative. He was like a willing dumb fuck who went along with a Capitol riot and was a pawn in their game.
Just look at the summer riots. He couldn't do a goddamn thing. The police look like chumps. I mean. When you look back at how everything, the media narrative was played, you think a dictator could do that? You think
he was a dictator.
Yeah. You think Xi Jinping, if people were burning thousands of buildings, would tolerate that?
Well, guess what? Now Biden's in, and the troops are going to be in DC till the end of the year for some reason.
So
now the cops are in full effect now,
and it's massive super spreader as well, right? So that was And the worst part is the way it's one of these lawmakers. I don't know what her name was. She was having a go at that old man who sat on the Nancy Pelosi's desk, like during a court hearing or whatever.
Okay.
And she's talking about she looks out of the window and how disgusted she is to see these troops walking around. I mean, like, bitch, you work for the American people and you're disgusted to see these men in uniform protecting you outside.
That's
I mean,
weird, yeah.
You have one of the most insulated lives in the world, and you should feel a little bit, scared that you need to feel a little bit scared that you need this type of security to protect you, because for the longest time you also have been fucking people over and getting away with it, and now it's this is a reminder of what the consequences for that. So,
but the problem is the first riot that took place in the Capitol was in all sense of purposes for Trump. I
Yeah,
can't think of a
so
worse reason. So now they know what's going to happen when people are pissed. Don't forget, they did a study. Washington Post had an article out, right? They said the majority of the people in the Trump riot were people under extreme financial stress, right? Which is like 99% of this country. They don't want the desperate people ever again encroaching upon the hallowed halls of Congress, right? So now they're going to set in wheels in motion that if you protest at your city council, you'll be arrested. You protest. I mean, I think there's a West Virginia passed a law the other day. They've banned unions in public sector. So all this stuff is happening, like decensoring, deplatforming, you can take part in protests. I remember when Bush did free speech zones, that was such a big thing. And now it's like free speech zones. We were lucky if we have any speech, you know?
So if that whole city hall occupation from 2010 occurred, now
Oh my God. Well, Obama knocked their heads out anyway. I mean, they complete. In fact, that was they made an analogy towards that during the GameStop thing. They said that's the new. But guess what? That whole GameStop thing, the Wall Street people won at the end. No one's talking about it anymore. You know why? Because they won, and Reddit is lost.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you knew they were going to eventually lose.
Of course.
So, but it wasn't about the eventual outcome. It was about how
headlines.
The world, how the world reacted and what you saw how. When people who have vested interests came out, I mean, it was a moment of where things were exposed. That's what's great about the GameStop thing. It wasn't like we all knew what the outcome was going to be, but it was more about the how the ordinary people had this tremendous opportunity to expose everyone from around the world.
First of all, I mean, I knew the story was going nowhere because immediately that bank got bailed out. I mean, that hedge fund got bailed out by another hedge fund, right? And these guys play for the long game. The Redditors don't play for the long term. To them, a day is a long term, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, but the thing is, there was all these. You'll have all these Katie Porters and Elizabeth Warrens yelling at like bankers in the Senate and stuff or the House, and they'll be like, oh, they're so progressive. But you know what? They don't do shit at the end of the day. These people are like in fact, the rules for Wall Street are in favor for rich like established players. Small bit players will always get screwed. It's like the house in Las Vegas.
Yeah. So and definitely you can see that. I mean, when you look at how wealthy a lot of these Congress people are, it's not like there is no visible investment. They haven't really expanded their. It's not like exactly these people are billionaire businessmen or something like that. They don't have any spend. So how do they end up with like hundreds of millions of dollars in their bank account? So they get taken care of. So of course, that a lot of that money has to come from the corporate sector anyway, in some way or the other. I mean, they will have a book out, and they won't sell fuck all, but for some reason they still end up in the bestseller list because that's just New York Times makes sure that it's propped up there and kept there for a while, long enough for them to have some money funneled in from some way or the other. So those Katie Potters and all, they get looked after in some way or the other. And unlike in the past where, we can see the lobby money coming visibly into a campaign, now it's a far more sophisticated. People like Michael Bloomberg have, invested ground up in a way that it's very hard to now trace how money actually goes into politicians' pockets anymore. So the open secrets, they can't tell us exactly how these politicians.
Well, listen, if you're Trump, you're obviously corrupt, and that's all we care about, right?
Yeah, but the thing is, one thing about Trump's campaign though was it's a far more transparent than the kind of campaigns that Democrats currently have now. Right now, the Democrat campaigns that the Bloomberg machine, people like Bloomberg, they have, and George Soros, they have invested in a whole different type of. The type of nuts and bolts.
I think what they figured out also, these politicians, is that they figured out that to keep themselves relevant, like if I'm Pelosi, right, instead of sidelining AOC, let her be leading the charge for whatever I want by twisting things around, right? So now AOC's for censorship. She's for like, you try to kill me and we're going to have these troops in here. And when Biden bombs a place. So they realize that the messaging, like let's co-opt this fake squad, right? And they'll do what we want and people will listen to them because they're considered the good people.
And people like AOC are a product of these type of investments that people like Bloomberg have done over the years.
Right. Yep.
These type of actors, that Stacey Abrams. So if you actually look into their whole college record and how they came to the power and how they came to the spotlight, you can easily trace it back to how they were a product of all these grant monies and all these
Institutes.
so-called so-called institutes that
Yeah.
people like Bloomberg has invested in every little town in every corner of America. And these are the type of money in politics that we can't trace anymore. So, and it's we need a new system to actually
And also, this
keep
is
an
never
eye
going to
out
be.
on.
This is also never going to be broadcast in any mainstream, any kind of like Newsweek, Time, whatever, Forbes. Like this shit will never be there. It's like there's. I think there's too much money invested in like sides fighting each other, and that helps them because if the sides fight each other, the people don't realize that it's just one class that's oppressing them, and to go for them with the pitchforks. I mean, remember Obama telling the 1%ers, "Hey, I'm protecting you from the pitchforks." People thought it was the other way around, where he was trying to like help the pitchforks and he threatened the 1%. He was actually saving them. He actually said, "Hey, guess what? It's me who's saving your ass," you know. Which is why he didn't put any bankers in jail to begin with. I think one guy went to jail. He was like some low-level guy. But there was no like, Jamie Dimon is still hanging around, man. Cancer on this economy. Along with that bald fuck from the Goldman Sachs. What's his name? I keep forgetting.
It's always bald. They always have fucking...
Well, Bezos too, right?
Yeah, they all fucking... You can see they started on the male pattern baldness at the age of 16, a lot of these men. Yeah, so... bald, hunched neck, they hardly look like men.
Well, it's their money that talks, right? Bullshit walks a marathon. So I guess that does it for this week's Beyond Narratives. We are slowly pecking in on the sheath that covers all this mess, and we'll be back in 2 days with a new episode.
Yeah.
Chris, got any last words to say?
No, I mean the last words I want to say is so everyone, so we can now see how I mean for those of you, those people who think that this is all just a conspiracy and we are just gaslighting. No, we are not fucking gaslighting. You can see from the way, you can see from how the Democrats are reacting to the Syria bombing, and you can see the hypocrisy. I mean, this is we used to make fun of Trump's tweets, because you can see the hypocrisy in Trump's tweets. But look at the Democrats. Look at what the press secretary, White House press secretary. Look at what she tweeted a few years back, and look what she's tweeting today. Look how the squad and everyone sort of giving,
silent.
I mean, you can see that they have pushed back, but not in a way that counts. So you can see how fake it is. You can see how fake. You can see the Biden's refusal to give a $15, an hour minimum wage. When push comes to shove, these people won't do it because there's too much. They are an investment for big corporations. So there's going to be no significant change regardless of who you vote to power. So with this duopoly. So I mean and it is very visible now. I mean if you don't see it now, you're a retard. So you're a moron. Sorry.
Yeah, you're gonna be cancelled.
Yeah, if you don't see it now, you truly got your head up your ass. So I just want you to keep that in mind. That's we need to keep reminding you people these things every time it happens. Not because we want to gaslight you or we are sort of closeted for Trump supporters or anything like that, but we need to remind you because if we don't, then, you're just going to forget it. The next tomorrow is another day. You will be like, back on the Biden wagon or whatever.
And don't forget, there's a considered a complete messaging, unified thing happening where they're literally making left go right, up goes down kind of thing. Like, for example, when The Last American Vagabond got deplatformed from Patreon, he was citing sources like the New York Times, Washington Post, and they said that he was selling COVID misinformation. And he goes, I am actually citing sources in mainstream newspapers, right? And they will also they canceled him for content behind a paywall. It wasn't even public content, right? So I think what's also happening is that there's a very concerted effort in trying to like sort of, I would say, turn facts. Literally, alternative facts have become normal now. Trump may have like parodied it with what's her name, Kellyanne Conway saying it, but it's the same thing. It's just as long as you do it in civility. That's the main thing. If you're civil, you can drop all the bombs you want, and if you hold your hand like Obama, you're fine. And I think they've transposed that. You know, the reason they're going after, for example, in the Capitol riot, the reason they're going, they get so annoyed usually is because civility, right? If you're not civil, you know, like they. So I think the country sort of had a bit of that. So what happened is when something really like the Capitol riot happens. Now, don't forget, the Capitol riot didn't affect anybody in this country at all. Like zero people got affected. But it's bigger than minimum wage. It's bigger than COVID. It's bigger than the wars. I mean, are you kidding me? So I think they've been able to message that across to, well, the shitlib first, and then it trickles down from coastal elites into, I don't really think it resonates much with the average American, but I think the people who live in New York City and LA and San Francisco, they're the ones who are just like, oh my God, the Capitol riot, like my coffee fell on my lap. How could this happen? So I think what we're going to try and do here is push against that narrative. I don't even think that we should even tell anybody that we are not Trump supporters, because first of all, it seems to be some kind of like disclaimer that you have to say that before you can prove your point. I think that's part of the problem, right? I can have my own point of view, and I don't care what you think I am, because I have my own point of view. I shouldn't have to say, hey, I'm not a Trump supporter for you to now start listening to me, right? It's got nothing to do with Trump, but it's gotten to that point where you have to say that. I mean, you just said it like a second ago, right? We're not Trump supporters, but I think that's become like a deflective reaction that most progressives and leftists actually have, because they feel like if they don't say it, people are going to think they're Trumpers. But I think like if you already think I'm a Trumper, you're already part of that whole propaganda matrix. You've been swallowed into the blob kind of. So our job here is to sort of push back against that and give you the facts. But yeah, that's about it for this week, and we'll be back. Today is Saturday, February 27th, so we'll be back on Monday. Peace out.
Yeah, take care. Peace out.